Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast where I bring in the best and the brightest in the world of business, marketing, and personal growth to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career forward. Folks, my guest today is Lindsey Scrase, the Chief Operating Officer at Checkr. Checkr is the data platform that powers safe and fair decisions. They're a technology company that helps their customers assess risk, modernize hiring, and cultivate trusted relationships in their workplace and communities. And Lindsay brings over 20 years of experience across sales, account management, ops, business development, partnership strategy, and growth functionalities. And prior to Checkr, Lindsay spent 10 years at Google Cloud, where she played an instrumental role in growing the business to over 6 million Google Workspace customers and scaling the Google for Startups Cloud program. We have a lot to get into, so let's do it.
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast where I bring you the best and the brightest from the world of business, marketing, and personal growth to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career forward. Folks, we are lucky today. We are lucky we are broadcasting live from timesquarestudios.com. Did I say that right, Alan? Is it timesquarestudios.com?
Welcome to timesquare.com.
Welcome to timesquare.com. We'll get that one worked out for the next one. I'd love to welcome my guest today, Lindsey Scrase. She is the COO at Checker. Lindsay, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So happy to be here with you in Times Square today.
It is fun. And where's home for you?
I live in San Francisco.
Awesome.
The other coast.
The other coast.
Really nice to be here at this time of year as well.
This is my
like a fall day in New York.
How long are you in town for?
For like 5 days or so.
That's a good amount of time.
Yeah.
You're going to have a little bit of downtime to walk around and maybe go to Central Park.
Between meetings, walking from here to there, but it's such a great city. Always good to be here.
If you had to choose between New York and San Francisco, is it a choice?
I mean, I'm a San Francisco person, but love to visit here.
Well, it is a tech hub, and we're taking a look at going, in the Wayback Machine of your career. And you went from Google, and how many years were you at Google for?
I was at Google for 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I joined Google Cloud was this startup within Google at the time, a few hundred people, and like selling Gmail to businesses. Was there for 10 years, building and scaling a lot of pieces. And at the end, it was, Google, tens of billions of dollars in revenue, lots of customers, a lot of learning and challenges and fun along the way. But a really good 10 years there.
That's incredible. And if we could hit the Wayback Machine again, what was the impetus to go to Google? Were you like, I always want to work at the big tech companies, and if there's one that's at the top of the list, it's Google?
No, the early part of my career, I was working internationally. I was like a general manager. I lived many different places in the U.S., lived abroad, in Europe, traveled the world. It was a really amazing experience. But I was in like industrial supply chain. So like think port infrastructure, shipping, and learned a lot, like definitely achieved what I wanted to in terms of the skill development, the exposure to life and work outside the US. But for that next chapter, I really wanted to get hands-on with a product that I knew well, that people could understand, and that I could like wholeheartedly recommend to anyone in my family or anyone I knew. And I was a big early adopter of Gmail.
Same
and,
here.
I bought did you buy your first account?
I don't even know. I pay for it now. I know that because I get the invoice every month. But I remember when I was an early adopter as well, and I secured my name, and it's AJ Posner, and
Yeah.
I was like, that's going to be mine.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I remember at the time when it first launched, it was invite only, and you
Yes.
had to I remember buying an invite on eBay somehow, and I loved it, and so that was the first product in Google Cloud. So I really, it was more like the product itself that drew me.
You're a user.
And then a shift into tech. I was living in the Bay Area. And then from there, I really wanted to work on something that was growing and scaling, not something really big. So I was in a big company, but
it was a smaller.
It was small, and just got to wear a lot of hats and do many things as we figured out how to scale and grow.
So let me ask you: do you remember the interview process at Google back then? Was it a gauntlet? What's it like? Let's lift up the curtain.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, there was a different approach than there is now, but there was a lot of brain teasers, and I remember they asked
Puzzles.
me how many people are on their smartphone right now. And so that was
Like in the world?
yeah, like at this moment, how many people are on their phone?
So once your thought process, kind
Your
of
thought
where
process,
the logical flow, the mathematics, like there's no right answer,
There's no
obviously.
right answer. It's just like, how do you break down the problem? I mean, no one knows the answer to that. But how do you break down the problem? How do you think about structuring it? And then other like a lot of questions of like, if you were faced with the problem we have right now, how would you solve it? And I think through that process too, like got me familiar with like how problems are solved at Google, and I got very excited about it and about the company.
I don't want to jump too far ahead yet, but when you think about that interview process and you think about your experience at Google, from the interview process, how does that apply now when you interview folks for your team?
Yeah. There's a few things I look at, and I think that are also similar when I was at Google a while back as well. But first is role-related knowledge. So, like, if you're hiring someone for marketing, for sales, for engineering, like, do they have the capabilities to actually do that specific job?
Right.
And for certain things require more in-depth capabilities than others. But like, that's a part of it. But then the big other part of it is, first of all, just like your general problem-solving ability. And so, are you able to take a really nebulous, confusing problem and just apply first principles thinking to solve it? So you may be a really good expert in this, but everything's changing so quickly in tech. Like the problems we have today are different than the problems of the future. And so you really want to make sure we're hiring for people who can, solve what's to come. And then the third thing I'd say is just like leadership and influence. So anyone can do the work, or if you're able to do the work really well, if you're able to problem solve, that's really important and great. But can you, if you're a people manager, can you create followership and leadership? Can you help grow and coach and develop people? Or if you're an individual contributor in your role, can you influence cross-functionally through other people?
Love that.
That's the hardest part. It's like getting things done with and through others.
So how do you synthesize the end goal through questions during an interview process? What does that look like for you? Do you have like a kind of a patented Lindsay's, line of questioning? Like, what are you trying to figure out? I mean, well, I think that's the answer. I don't mean to jump in there. I mean, I've spoken to many leaders like yourself, and ultimately at the end of the day, they want to know, how did you figure it out?
About hiring folks?
Well, more so like if we're interviewing, like, Lindsay, let's talk about, what you did in your last role there. Let's talk about a specific problem. Talk me through how you figured it out. What was the problem? What was the solution? Walk me through those steps.
Yeah.
How did we get there?
Yeah. I think it's really about thinking through how is someone able to like really go deep into the complexity and in the details, right? Because it's easy sometimes to solve a problem like surface level, but it's a lot harder to go really deep into all the nuance and challenge and like get nitty gritty, and then kind of take all that complexity and then simplify it up. And so really looking at what are the steps you took, like what data did you need, what questions did you have, how deep did you go to be able to figure this out, and like uncovering that next layer of what and why and how and what did you learn. And I think some of the most the like best people I've seen are able to not only solve the problem, but also reflect on it as they're going and say like, hey, I was doing this, but I actually like made a mistake here, and this is what I learned, and this is how I pivoted it.
Isn't that self-awareness, right? Like you want to vibe check for self-awareness?
For sure. And like I think someone who thinks they've got it all figured out and knows everything, like
you don't want to know it all on your team.
No, exactly. And it's dangerous from a business perspective if you're not staying, vigilant and curious and like trying to understand where are the blind spots for an individual or for the company.
And how do you vibe check? How do you listen? You don't want everyone looking and sounding the same on the team. You want similar values and you want good people, right? You don't want any assholes on the team there. So how do you talk to folks during an interview to assess that?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is what are the values of the company you're hiring for, and everyone has different values of their company. Some companies may want like total mercenaries or 996 or whatever that is. Others may have like completely different values. So at Checkr, our values are humility, transparency, ownership, grit, and connection.
I love that.
And so we're looking for people who've got that grit and ownership. Like they will take a problem and run with it. And similar to Google, like cut through ambiguity. I think that's like really want people who are like drivers, not passengers. And then on top of that, though, being really direct and transparent. Humility is something in the interview we really look at a lot at Checkr. So,
How does that line of questioning or that conversation go to assess humility? Because it's a tough one. Like it's subjective, and you
yeah.
also have to kind of weed through: is someone just a really good interviewer, or do they actually have this quality and trait?
For sure. And that's like, it's always hard to assess, like, are they really good interviewing? Or I think it's asking, what have you learned, and really going deeper on that. What's some feedback you've gotten, and how have you responded to that feedback? How, if you think about like your current role, what could you be doing better or differently? So it's all the questioning. And then beyond that, there's reference checking and back channeling. I do all of that myself.
Back channeling's real. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think
Yeah.
we have our network, and we're going to ask if
Yeah.
you knew that I worked with a former coworker that you're close with.
Absolutely.
Hey, what was it like to work with Adam?
Yeah,
But hopefully you're not using that as a singular data point,
for sure.
right? Because there could be bias involved. There could be
Absolutely.
interpersonal conflict. You
Absolutely.
didn't even know. So you need to triangulate, those pieces there. So I want to get back to your career trajectory a bit here.
Yeah.
What was that decision process to say, all right, it's been a decade here at Google. I am going to move on to a startup.
Yeah. Yeah.
Completely different energy, vibe, obviously resources. What was
Yeah.
that decision process like for you, and what drew you to Checkr?
Yeah, it was a hard decision process, I
Had
would
to be.
say. Yeah, I think, and for me, when I join a company, I want to stay for a long chunk of time. I don't jump around. And for me at Google, I was there 10 years. As I mentioned, when I started, we were a few hundred people, scrappy, rolling up our sleeves. We were tens of thousands of people in Google Cloud when I left, and I really had that moment of like my learning was starting to flatten. I was becoming really, really good at leading teams, getting things done at Google is its skill in and of itself. But I miss the just the earlier stage growing and
Building.
scaling and building. Yeah, exactly. And so I started talking to companies, and I wasn't decided to leave. I said, like, let me just like see what's out there.
Right.
I
Put
talked
some
to
feelers out there.
several-
Let's
yeah,
just listen and see what's happening in the world.
exactly. It's like the product market fit was important to me. The people even equally or more so. And a friend of mine, she was at Y Combinator. They were an early investor in Checkr. She said, talk to Checkr. They're doing something very interesting. And I said, no, I'm good. I don't know anything about the background check space. I don't know anything about HR tech at the time. And I passed on it. And then fast forward a couple of months, I saw like the billboard. There was a billboard about Checkr in San Francisco, which they can be good for talent acquisition. And and then she reached out again, and I said, okay, I'll take a call. And I think what really struck me about Checkr was, first of all, the product market fit, and Checkr developed the first background check APIs. So instead of doing like a lot of manual people and paper and processes to hire someone and to feel confident about compliance, able to do that with technology
At
and
scale.
AI at scale, and able to just transform, like particularly gig at the beginning, like being able to hire the volume of people that these gig companies needed to. And so that was really interesting to me, like just disrupting with new technology.
So pause there for one
Yeah.
moment. So there was that aha moment. You're like, well, I wasn't particularly interested at first, but then you were triggered by the billboard, which said, "Oh, let me dig in a little bit more."
Yeah.
And was it the evolution and advancement of the technology Checkr was doing, or is it the use case that caught your attention when you said this is a space that we could innovate and disrupt? Because on paper, it's not sexy. It's not like, I'm working for a background check company,
exactly.
right? Versus, I'm working for a FANG company there.
Yeah.
But you saw something there.
Yeah.
What was it specifically from a product perspective and from a leadership perspective?
Yeah. Well, on the product side, it was the fact that Checkr already had product market fit when I joined, but it was seeing really good traction in helping companies really transform their hiring and like meet their goals. And just, I love being able to help customers in a meaningful way for them. And I saw the path not just to do that for this set of companies here, like the large gig companies, but also where they were seeing early signs of success for small businesses, medium size enterprises. And that to me was like an awesome, exciting challenge to go tackle of how do we continue to scale what we're doing, continue to improve the product and figure out more ways to delight more customers. And then on the people and leadership side, I think it was a couple things. I work for the founder CEO. And in that relationship, it really is important that there's alignment of values, that there's alignment of what I'm selling is what they want. And Daniel and I, from the very first conversation, there was like a clear trust and alignment. And that was important.
That'd be different for you also, your career, because you're working in big organizations.
Yeah.
Where you had to actually, and keep me straight here, you had to probably do an ego check also on that founder.
Oh, absolutely.
Of course.
Absolutely.
And so for anyone out there who is considering working at a startup, what are some Lindsay pro tips to do an ego check?
An ego check on the founder?
Yeah. Founder check.
I think that
Aisle 7.
I think that for going to a startup, first of all, like understanding this is not the founder related, but does this startup have product market fit? And it's fine to go pre-product market fit or post, but you just want to know what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
And some people really like that phase of like, how do we find the right fit for this product? But it's just much more nebulous. Then there's like, if you have it,
Where they're on the timeline.
Scale. Yeah. Like, where are you on that timeline, and where are they in their growth curve and from a revenue and profitability? On the founder, I think really understanding what are their values, because the values of the founder and the personality of the founder will be the personality of the company, especially in the early years or decade. And so making sure that you feel good about that and align with that. Like I mentioned at Checkr, one of Danielle's big priorities is like very smart, ambitious people, but low ego. Like doesn't want politics. Like we're all in this together. And
Right.
that really resonated with me, for example. The humility aspect as well really resonated with me.
And what resonates in the values that you look for when you hire.
Exactly. And then like that, like the people will hire people like them, and whether for better or for worse. And so that will permeate.
So let's talk about Checkr's mission centered around, fair chance hiring. How do you define what fair means in the context of this technology?
Yeah. Well, so Checkr's mission is to build the data platform to power safe and fair decisions. So we are a data company. We've screened, 2/3 of the adult population, working population in the US in one way, shape, or form. And so we want to use that data to empower our customers to make decisions that are compliant and safe, and where people feel comfortable from a work perspective, but then also fair in that there's not unnecessary bias introduced into the hiring process. And as part of that fairness, you mentioned fair chance hiring. Checkr, in terms of a social mission outside of our business mission, we invest in advancing fair chance advocacy and awareness. Fair chance hiring, if you're not aware.
And what does that mean for
this?
Everyone?
This
may not be aware with the term and the practice.
Yeah, so sometimes it's referred to as second chance hiring, but this is folks who have a criminal record or conviction. 1 in 3 adult Americans has an arrest record or conviction. 1 in 3, which is wild when you think about it. That's a big chunk of our working population. And so historically, a lot of background checks or processes screen folks out immediately and without any really thinking of does that conviction relate to what this
right? What's put it into context? What was the offense? Have they been rehabilitated? Have they shown remorse?
Yeah.
And have they committed a crime again? Right?
Yeah.
Let's look at the record instead of just saying, "Hey, we flagged it for a criminal offense, regardless, irrespective of what it is, they're out."
Exactly.
That's not fair.
Exactly. And so the decision still lies with our customers,
Right,
but
with their threshold
we create tools to make them be able to think about that thoughtfully, build it into their processes as well, of saying hey, we don't even want to see these offenses because we're not legally required to screen out. We don't think they make sense to screen out from what we need. Maybe someone was recklessly driving. They're not driving in this role, or there could be many other examples like that.
Well, pause on that. This is, if anyone's been following the show, this is a cause that's been near and dear to my heart for a while, doing work with Defy Ventures, where we work with currently incarcerated folks.
Amazing.
It's almost like a Shark Tank within the prisons, and we go in and we work with them, and they win money that they get when they come out to start their businesses. So this is something very near and dear to my heart. And you really, this is the way I like to think about it. We're all just one bad decision away from being behind bars. And it could be something, it's nefarious. Listen, I made a bad decision. I literally had 2 glasses of wine and, I blew a stop, yes, that's awful. You should never drive drunk, but it doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It means I made a mistake. I paid for my crime one way or another.
Yeah.
And does that mean I can never work again? No one's going to hire me?
Yeah.
Versus really taking a look back saying, what did Adam do? Did he pay for what he did? Is he rehabilitated? And let's give him a second chance.
Yeah. And no one wants to be defined for the rest of their lives for the worst decision they made. And I think that the criminal justice system and assuming that everything's working as intended, once someone has served their time, I think the challenge is then they're serving it for the rest of their life when they can't get a job.
They're branded. Yeah.
Getting employment it's such a leading indicator of whether someone will end up back in prison or not if they don't have a job. That increases dramatically.
So how does Checker's social cause work in this area? Now I'm just really curious.
Yeah, so there's several pieces to it. We invest. We've taken the pledge 1%. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but we pledge 1% of our profits, equity, time to a cause, and we were named a leader in this last year. For us, it's fair chance hiring, advocacy, and awareness, and so we invest in organizations who are doing that work, nonprofits, and we partner with them. We also do our own fair chance hiring within our population. So around 5% of our own workforce are justice impacted. And that has been an amazing investment for us. We have a lot of phenomenal talent who...
Eating your own dog food.
Yep. And then there's the product itself. And so we have adjudication, like we help simplifying this. We help employers productize some of these decisions. If they say, if you want to think about hiring folks in a compliant, safe way, take out some of the bias, use our tools. You set it up how you see fit.
Right. If like it was, for example, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Like it was like I'm saying, was it a financial crime? And we're not going to put this person in a finance role. Was it a motor vehicle situation? Now, they're not driving.
Exactly.
You know, what was it? Was it
a marijuana charge from a certain type?
Or was it violence? Right? Was it
exactly?
Right, and then you can make the decision based on understanding a little bit deeper dive versus just branding everyone as a criminal who was convicted of something.
Exactly. And our goal, our mission is to build the data platform, and as part of that, it's how do we get more and more data and signals to help people, customers, make decisions in a way that's compliant, in a way that's fair, and aligned with their business outcomes. And we just helped create more and more of a clear picture and tools to do so. Yeah.
So that's one half of the puzzle, or one quarter of it, so to speak. The other piece, which is incredibly hot topic right now, is fraud, right? Yeah. We see it as a recruiter, and in the trenches recruiter, we're seeing, we've kind of hit a bottom, as I like to say, of bot. It's bot versus bot. You have bot applications versus, AI powered bot functions within the interview hiring process too. And it's just bot versus bot. It's like rock'em sock'em bots. And coming with that is also a ton of fraud. I personally don't understand where all these fake resumes are coming from and why, but it's happening. Mm-hmm. But in the same time, people are also adding stuff to their resume that may not be truthful. Mm-hmm. It may be, credentials, education, experience. How big of a problem is AI fraud, and how does Checkr work to solve it? And as much, without giving away the secret sauce, how do you decipher what's fact versus fiction?
Yeah.
What are the data points?
It's getting harder and harder, as you're mentioning, and becoming more and more of a problem. We see this in our data. We see it in talking to customers every day. Something that was kind of once a fringe issue is now becoming more and more on their radar as a top priority. And some of the things that are making this more pronounced right now, one, the rise of AI, obviously, and then also the rise of remote work, where you just have more and more people who are virtually working for your company. And
is it really them?
Is it really them? And so we're and then like, are people employed? Are people singularly employed? So if you're applying for a full-time role, we've seen a lot of people have like 4 different full-time jobs at once.
Is that illegal?
No. I mean, it's for sure violating the terms of employment for a lot of these companies. And so it's becoming like HR leaders are really like having a lot more of a complicated landscape to navigate right now amidst everything else going on. And so Checkr, what we do is try to help simplify this for hiring across multiple dimensions. Like, first of all, is this a real human? And with AI bots,
let's verify that first. Is this a human, flesh and blood?
A human, yeah. The second is this human who they say they are? People may use invalid credentials. They may say they're someone who they're not. I think you've probably seen the news of like people getting jobs from North Koreans and tech companies, and so there's just a lot of like, is this person
right? Because there's security threat also, depending on your company and the product and how sensitive the work is.
It could be, exactly.
And they have access to data. They have access to financial records.
Yeah. And so it's especially when you've got folks working remotely, it can be very confusing. Mm-hmm. So is this person who they say they are? Third, we help companies understand, is this like, are the credentials and the experience the person has claimed they have, accurate. Like you said, you could put anything on LinkedIn
You can
nowadays.
put whatever you want.
No one's verifying
Someone
it.
even put like, their CEO of LinkedIn. And LinkedIn left it on. That's a true story.
Exactly. I've seen people who've said they've had my job. Like there's just a whole host of things out there. And so we help verify that at the source. Like, so we're verifying, did this person get the degree? Were they enrolled at this educational institution?
And is that
Like I said,
opt-in?
employees go through this.
Hey everybody, Adam here from the Podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by the team at Fountain. Fountain is your full-service frontline workforce management platform. I have to tell you, Fountain's offerings are some of the most robust I've seen for any product in the space. They offer full solutions for hiring, managing, and retention. They are truly a one-stop shop focused on the frontline workforce. They also create informative content using their data. For example, they analyze a bunch of data from their fast food chains and created a trend report you could download now on their website. They also have a new ebook out called Frontline Voices. There's a lot to dive into. Certainly check it out. And you could learn more at fountain.com, linked in the show notes. Thank you. This episode of the podcast is powered by Welcome to TimesSquare.com, the billboard where you could be a star for the day. To learn more, please visit welcome to timesquare.com. Thanks. Right, but the candidate has to opt in, otherwise it's part. Or is it part of the job application process? Hey, listen, if you're clicking this box here, you're consenting for us to do
It's before an offer is made.
So they wait till the end.
Yeah, it's opt-in. So we're looking at other ways to pull that up in the process because so people aren't wasting a lot of interviewing and recruiting.
I was about to say, in this day and age,
Yeah.
from an efficiency perspective, where does that fall into the timeline? My gut as a recruiter would be immediately in the application process.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
If you're looking at the pipeline, I mean, the big problem we have right now is volume.
Yeah.
It's definitely a supply and demand issue. There's a lot of great folks out of work, and there's not a lot of job opportunities, and the pipeline is flooded. So how do we reduce the amount of fraudulent applications earlier on, especially before you get to an offer? Because now you as a hiring manager, you're all high and mighty on this candidate.
Yeah.
But then you find out they're not who they said they were.
Yeah.
You got to start over and go back to a previous candidate.
And it's very expensive. This can be like $100,000 per employee, depending on the company and the role of all the recruiting time spent, onboarding, et cetera. So yeah, I think there's opportunity to move that earlier and earlier and using data to catch like lightweight signals or flagging, because it can be expensive to run these comprehensive things at the top of funnel. But what are some flags of like, hey, this is maybe one you want to look into based on like what we're triangulating. And then there's the experience in the interview process as well of folks using AI to maybe misrepresent their work or to use like upload fraudulent documents in terms of their experience.
And there's different levels that I see as a recruiter. There's the AI tools right now which are taking job descriptions and resumes, and they're pulling in the job description points to beef up a resume for a specific job. Mm-hmm. It's a gray area because it's actually not a gray area. If you do not have that experience, you should not be putting it on your resume.
Yeah.
That's misrepresentation of your skills and background.
Yeah.
Little tweak here or there if you've done it here or there. I mean, there's a bit of a gray area. But how do you, again, keep me straight here because I'm not super familiar with the deep side of the tech here. From my experience, you're allowed to do a reference check and say, how long did Adam work at this company? But you can't say compensation, right? And you can't say if he got let go or if he quit. I believe that's the case. In some states, I think there's some gray area there too. But how do you go deeper than that and say, okay, what did Adam do in role? What did Adam do in position? What was his title?
I think that the title
I think that's fair game.
Position is fair game. And we do that through the verification process with each employer. The actual skills and competencies, that's harder. And that's where it's down to like the hard work of interviewing, right? And it's all the things we talked about earlier of like, how do you make sure you're interviewing thoroughly, doing the reference checks, the back channels to get like level of proficiency in certain things. And I think that we do this, not all companies do, but really believe deeply in the working sessions where you do an interview. Someone could be a great interviewer, but then you spend time ideally in person where someone's not using some sort of a generative AI tool of their choice, but to go through a real working problem,
case study,
simulation case study, and like spending an hour seeing and like testing where are the areas where you need to make sure that they are very skilled, either at like problem solving or a specific skill set, whether it's a coding exercise or whether it's a marketing case study or whatever that case may be.
And I mean, how do you scale that even for like high volume hiring? I mean, these are challenges.
Yeah, and there's more and more tools out there that can do some of the screening in advance, like engineering coding studies or problem sets as you go through the writing samples at scale. But
do that in person though, right? Because that's all we've heard crazy stories about, horror stories about, even interviewing with the AI screen in front of you, listening real time and giving you the answers.
Exactly. No, exactly. And a lot of this is like it's like training your interviewers, training your hiring managers to things to look for, building in the checkpoints, and making sure that like there's a holistic assessment of someone, not just based on one interview.
Do you feel like we've fallen off on just general training on how to interview? How companies could work with their hiring managers to have, consistent, steady, measurable interview tactics and questions.
Yeah.
So you have fair comparison points.
Yeah. It's absolutely critical. I think for every company, it's important to have like, what are the 3 to 4 things you are measuring for this role? Who's assessing? There's usually an interview panel of a handful of people. Who's assessing each of those? How do you make sure there's structured interviewers to capture that? And then layering in, like, how do we combat AI throughout this process is another dimension. But absolutely, it's like an always-on education and up-leveling and training that needs to happen.
What's the craziest tactic you've seen using AI from a candidate that's gotten either passed or caught with one of your clients? We're not naming anybody here, but what is like, I cannot believe the extent that they went to.
I mean, I think that it's like some of the things we talked about, but people who were working 3 to 4 jobs full time, like imagine how much work that is. You've got like 4 laptops, you've got like 4 different email accounts.
I can't even imagine.
Like to be able to manage that is a lot. I'm
sure they automate a lot of it.
She is yeah, I'm sure.
They're smart enough to get 4 jobs, they can figure it out.
Yeah. Or just people who go through the entire process based on a completely fraudulent background, get hired, start on the job, and then, we had one customer saying like, something seems really fishy here with this person. Like they don't seem to have the experience they represented throughout the process, and having to go terminate that person when they discovered it was all fake. So it's a very real problem right now across the board, especially in white collar work where so many people like there's a lot more remote work, but even more pervasively with people using fraudulent IDs across any job
scary.
out there. Yeah.
It's definitely scary. So let's shift gears a little bit. And I really do enjoy talking about this because I think it's critically important. The fear of younger folks and entry-level employees that their jobs are going to be diminished, extinct, non-existent, insert whatever word you want to hear, not around anymore because of AI. In your opinion, is that an experience? Is that a real fear? What are you seeing out there?
I think the fear is real, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think that in terms of the AI hype cycle, there's like a lot of expectations of what it can deliver, and I think it will transform the world. Yeah, I have no doubt of that. But I think there's a little bit of like the trough of disillusionment we're in right now of like all the things we thought it could do and like save, all this productivity. You're realizing like you need a lot of humans in the loop to make any of this work.
And they have to know what they're doing also.
Absolutely.
That's a missing piece here, right? Absolutely. Like you still have to have a human prompt it. I mean, yes, we're moving into agentic AI where it's kind of self-learning and feeding it forward, but you have to quality check it and you have to input the prompts and the data.
You need a lot of training for anything, ongoing training and improvement. You need a lot of SOPs, standard operating procedures, and content repositories to be continuously updated. And I think that like like in sales, for example, a lot of the work for larger companies, for smaller, not so much, but a lot of the work that could be automated already is been put in like offshore vendor partners or BPOs.
They've been doing this for a while.
Yeah. And so that some of that work will more quickly be automated through AI, but there's still a lot of entry level roles that are needed across all functions.
Well, the advice that I give is always, and this is irrespective of early stage, mid stages, always be learning. You want to make yourself invaluable in your role.
Absolutely.
You have your role, you have your job description, you have your day-to-day duties and responsibilities, but how do you add value on top of that and bring new ideas to the table and self-learn in certain areas of AI and show, and we're not talking about AI slop, which is my new favorite buzzword right now.
So much of that out there.
By the way, I have a friend that I called out on AI slop. I was like, you are binging on AI. You were taking everything as gospel, dude.
Yeah.
And I could feel it in your messaging. And I don't need a text from a friend that reads like AI.
Yeah, no.
Or like bro, just talk to me.
There's a lot of that
and
right now.
You could tell.
Yeah, you can tell.
You could tell.
And like there's
no
now
soul
like
to it, right? There's no.
Absolutely.
There's something missing, which we're getting close to. But going back to the early career, it's like, what would you like? Lindsay, what would you love to see from one of your employees bring to the table as far as AI? What would be awesome?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we always say at Checkr to everyone is AI will not take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI will. And so countless examples of people and things they've brought on the AI front. One of our, we had like a chat bot that was pretty low performing, like low quality. Our operations team, trained out an agentic voice bot for customers if they call in and say, hey, I'm having a problem with this. Transform the customer experience, not only more productive, but like way better customer engagement, customer happiness, and things like that, where you're like, I'm not just doing this to do this, but I'm going to really improve the experience for our customers and our candidates is really incredible.
And that ties back to the core ethos of Checkr. When you go back to your values, right, you're looking for the integrity, you're looking for the grit.
Absolutely.
And I mean, loyalty, high level, 30,000 foot view, loyalty between employer and employee is dead. We killed that years ago, right? And especially when people say, "Well, we're a family here, we're a family."
Yeah,
can't fire your family. Right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I can't fire my annoying cousin, right?
Yeah.
He's gonna be with me for a long time, right? and I'm not saying I have an annoying cousin. I'm just using an example here. But when you see people that are really invested in not just the company, but they care about their clients, they care about the customers, and they're looking out for them. And then you start to see that scale where more than one person is doing that. That's how a company grows, and that's what you want to see. And how do you as a leader nurture that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that for me, you can't force loyalty. You can't force
Oh,
someone
no,
to
no,
give it
no.
all. So it's like, for
Then
me.
we're in North Korea, right?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I really focus on investing in the human and the person. Like, I want you to be successful in your whole life. Part of that is work and showing that I care deeply. And so investing in that, and then setting really high goals and saying like, hey, I expect a lot out of you. I have pretty high expectations as a leader, but I'm here, I care about you, and I'm going to support you. I think that you can't force someone to give you their all. They have to choose to, and they will choose to give their all if they believe in the mission, the values, and the leaders they're following. And that's really important to build that trust between people. It won't necessarily equate to loyalty forever, but when you have trust and buy-in, it's like something you can't underinvest in. And it's hard to continue to invest in that when things are so busy, there's so much going on. But it is, well worth the time spent for getting that. And I think that also when hiring, another thing I will look at is how job hoppy is this person? Are they moving? And there's reasons often.
Yeah,
you'll hear.
Let's talk about that, because it's a tricky slope, because you have to understand context.
Yeah.
Right. You have to look at the linear path. You have to see, what was the reason that they left? Was it self-imposed? Did the company, go under?
Exactly.
What was the reason?
Yeah.
And then like, okay, so my, quote unquote bad boss or something like that. Okay, well, let's unpack that a little bit without getting confrontational. You have to look at the pattern over a period of time.
Absolutely. And the reasons, like there's often good reasons. There's often not. And making sure that, everyone, there's like or like you're always going to make maybe a job mistake, or like, hey, that company didn't work out or something. But making sure that people are not just jumping to the next shiny object when things get a little hard.
Right.
Because
bailing ship when things get tough.
Exactly. Like there's a lot of learning in when like, hey, there's challenges. We all got to roll up our sleeves. It's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. And you want people who will have the fortitude to stick through that and like know that they're going to get a lot of learning out of that.
I love that. And sometimes I say, like, sometimes you go to a restaurant and order something off the menu and it's just not right. But if you do that every time you go out,
then it's
maybe you're the problem. So
exactly.
I'm holding up this self-awareness mirror in front of you right now, Lindsay. As a leader, what is an area that you feel that you could improve upon as you progress in your senior leadership season of life of your career?
So many things.
Yes.
There's always so many things. Where do I start? I think that the thing I'm working on, and I continue to always work on this, is I'm a perfectionist. My wife will tell you that. Like it's like my long-term issue is, how do I just not let perfect be the enemy of good enough?
Love that.
But especially in business context, we have to make decisions all the time. And I've done a lot of work and continue to on like, what are two-way door decisions versus one-way door?
What do you mean by that?
So like some decisions you make, they are absolutely critical for the future of the company, and you got to make sure you get that right. That could be like an acquisition or a merger or something that's like, hey, this is like really pivotal.
Right.
Or even like the mission or values of
The
the
core
company.
fundamental
Yeah.
key decisions.
Yeah. Other things are two-way doors. Like, hey, let's like make this decision. If it doesn't work, we can pivot. Like, we're making the decision now with the best information we have at this time, knowing that like we don't know everything and we will learn. And so for me, it's making sure that not dragging out decisions that, that are two-way doors where there's not a perfect option.
Right.
It's just like a lot of things in business are polarities. Like there's positives of this decision, positives of this, negatives of both. And like, which one is going to
Like the
have the least
scorecard.
downside, and then you go and you pivot from there. And so that's ongoing for me.
Interesting. Is there a couple of like core leadership practices that you learned from your time at Google that you brought over to Checkr?
Yeah, I think that investing in, I mentioned this a little bit already, but like investing in the trust with your team members, and then the trust across the team. And so I really care deeply, and I talk to my team about this, of like, we are all in this together. This isn't like you pointing fingers at you. Like
It's a team effort.
we are all in it, and investing intentionally. And so that looks like getting together regularly, understanding who each person is outside of work, having fun together as well. It's like things are hard. Like it's hard. We're all working incredibly hard. Everyone has like their families and their personal lives as well. And so how do we make sure we're we invest in caring for each other so that when things get hard, we can be really direct. We can move quickly and get things done without having to like walk on eggshells.
And just to kind of tie the bow on AI and verification and checks, what's the next phase? What's the next big piece coming out in the evolution of utilizing tech and AI for employment verification, ID verification, criminal background verification?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is it going to just take over everything? We're just going to hit one button and that's going to be it?
I think it'll always be a complex landscape, but I think that a lot of this in the past has been pretty basic, like show me your ID, do a selfie, like do those match, like we're good, to really looking at more data holistically, taking data from the source and being able to be much more sophisticated in our assessments of, is this a real person? Are they who they say they are? Like, is this like, do we have good judgment on them and like for their ability to do X, Y, or Z? And Checkr's, leading in a lot here, and really excited for us playing a pretty pivotal role in shaping this for the future.
Out of personal curiosity, well, I guess it is personal. It's my podcast here. Out of my curiosity, are you looking also at social media, how folks are engaging on social media and kind of putting thresholds? Are they, listen, how much of it is private versus public? Is it okay for me to be, and I'm just making this up, I am super far left on Facebook and I'm very active and I'm talking, companies concerned, like, okay, how does it reflect back, on employees? Is that something that companies look at, and is there technology to Checkr around that, or is that something you're exploring?
We don't have technology on that right now. I think that it's not off the table, and some companies want that. But I think that it's really important not to introduce bias and into that, and that can be very difficult when you're taking someone's entire personal life. And how do you assess?
Like, are they a threat risk to come into an organization and misrepresent us?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
God forbid Adam goes and is at a protest and something happens there. How does it reflect back on our company? And then you're assessing risk factors. But it's just as you said, where's that fine line of bias, and where does a company stay neutral? And if it's a private company, they're entitled to take whatever position they want. Mm-hmm. But it could be a slippery slope.
Yeah. I think it's
interesting times.
I think that will continue to evolve in the future.
Does that scare you at all?
I think that using people's personal profiles or engagement online and making multiple leaps of logic. Like, there's some things that are very blatant. You're like, oh, actually, like, I don't want that person at my company.
They did that. I see it.
This.
Yeah.
But like the vast majority of things are much more nuanced, and I think there will be a lot of work there to make this better. But I think right now it could be misleading. Or how do you fully action on that?
It's like, how do we use the data and tools to help us with those nuances, with subjectivity, but also removing bias at the same time? It's fascinating.
Like, we got to remove bias. Got to make sure we're using all the data we have, but in a thoughtful way.
In your heart of hearts, do you truly feel like we're moving in the right direction in the workplace here in the United States?
In terms of what sense?
Just overall positivity, or are we being drawn into this commoditized, just worker bee mentality?
Yeah. I'm really excited about like the innovation and what's happening. I think that always there's a balance of people are not just disposable resources, and like we want to invest in people's careers and in growth. But I think that there's with any new wave of technology, there's just more and more opportunity for people to learn new things, to kind of reinvent the next chapter. And so I'm an optimist on this. I think there's a lot of things that are we have to be mindful of, and you've mentioned a few of them, like AI taking people's jobs or people being treated disposably. But I think that I'm generally optimistic about what's ahead.
That's the right
and
approach.
We can do. Yeah.
And what's keeping you up at night in this space?
Oh, I mean, I'm more just excited. Like, how do we continue to invest as quickly as we can on a lot of the areas we want to go tackle? And I think for any company, it's about prioritization and focus. And you could do like 100 different things. And I'm a type of person, I always want to do everything. Like, this is an amazing thing we could fix or do for this customer.
Let's do it.
And I think it's like whittling down to like, what are the biggest impact areas for us to solve, in what sequence, and then going as fast as we can after that roadmap.
Well, that is a positive attitude. And Lindsay, what is that single greatest piece of career advice that you've received that you pay forward?
I guess it wasn't a career advice, but my grandmother said to me once, right before she died, she said, like, Lindsay, if you're not living your own life, you're living someone else's. And I've just like always give that advice to everyone. You have to follow your own internal compass on what you want to do. There's a lot of shoulds I've had thrown at me in my life, like, oh, stay at Google, leave Google, do this, stay in cloud computing, et cetera, or live here, live there. Like, everyone, you have to really like get a really good sense of like who you are and what matters to you, because this is your life. And
one shot.
I think it's really important to have a good felt sense of that, because there's a lot of confusion out there, a lot of different directions. So that's something with anyone who works for me. I always ask, like, what is important to you, and not what I think you should do, but what do you think in your heart of hearts you should do? And that's how you're going to judge yourself as you go through your life.
That is some great advice. And the last one here that we'll finish up on, if anyone's looking at your background and your career, they're like, damn, Lindsay's pretty successful, but everyone defines success differently. Lindsay, in this stage of your life, how do you define success?
To me, it's like living a life of meaning versus success or happiness. And so that is doing work that I find really fulfilling, that challenges me, and that I look forward to like spending my time with those people with that work, raising my kids and being an amazing wife and mom, and showing my kids the example of like being able to do both of those things in the best way I can, and being a good family member. Like, to me, that's success, and feeling like I'm living a real meaningful life.
And that's what it's all about, folks. Lindsay, I want to thank you so much for joining me. And everyone out there, please visit checkr.com, CHECKR.com. We're going to link it up in the show notes. Where else could folks connect with you? Where could they learn more?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Lindsey Scrase, and go to our website. Also, always hiring, so please check out some of our open roles as well.
Always hiring. Look at that. Companies are hiring there. Well, awesome. Lindsay, I want to thank you so much for joining me. And everyone out there, thank you for joining us on this episode of the podcast. You know where to find out more at thepodcast.com. Check us out on social media, trying to blow up on YouTube, /thepodcast. Remember, be good to yourself, be better to others, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search The Podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.